Good morning, everybody. It's almost 6 a.m. right now. I wasn't planning on making a video today. I was going to take a break and just continuing with my daily routine. But this morning I woke up. You can hear in the distance, right? So that's some wedding music, Cambodian wedding music, right? So whenever there's a wedding or anything, they put it on a loudspeaker, and they just blast the music, right? It's really loud, like early in the morning, ever since 4 o'clock. Ever since 4 o'clock in the morning, they've been playing wedding music, and yeah, it's a bit annoying, And I've spoken about this topic before on my one of my older videos, but I think there's a lot of new subscribers now. And it just reminded me of the day that I got married, because it really means a lot. It was a special time for me and my wife. And I just want to share this with all the Khmer Americans that are new subscribers. And it was really a special time for us because it's our wedding day, So just wanted to talk about the difference with the view of marriage here compared to in the States, right? The process of getting married here is not as easy as in America, because you have to have both sides of the family agree. The bride and the groom, they have to agree on things, There's a long process before it does happen. So I'll explain my experience of, going through the whole process of getting married. So I said it before, my wife and I, we met by chance, and it was because of a family that introduced us, and that's the reason why we met. But let's go into detail. So at the time when we got married, right, my wife was 39, I was 36. She's older than me by 3 years. Cambodians have a conservative view of marriage, right? Meaning that they don't date, they don't mess around, right? So for my wife, there's been times where other men have asked her to marry, but she said no, she declined, Ever since she was a younger woman, like in her 20s, even then, she always felt like it wasn't time yet. And not just that, she felt like the guys who did come and try to ask her for her hand in marriage were just, they didn't pique her interest, She couldn't see herself being with whoever that person was for whatever reason. And like I said, my wife, she's an independent woman. She's a businesswoman. She's a vet. She does things on her own. She makes her own decisions. She's not a typical woman who relies on a man for financial support. She does things on her own, And I didn't know anything about her when we met. Only thing I knew was that she was a vet. So yeah. And so when we did meet, I only knew that she was a vet. My uncle was the one that introduced us. And for the meeting, one of the things that they do is they have the old folks come and meet. So my wife was living with her aunt at the time, and my dad's oldest sister was the one that came, So her aunt and my aunt met, right? So they're old folks. They met each other, and my auntie told her auntie, there's somebody that's interested, and I was wondering if they could meet, So we went, we met. We didn't really talk to each other. We just kind of looked at each other, from a distance. So she sat on one side, I sat on the other side, and my aunt was like, yeah, this is my nephew here. He works in Phnom Penh as a teacher, and he's interested, So it's up to the auntie to say, give her opinion on how she feels. Then it's up to my wife to make the decision on whether she wants to or not, because she's older now, I mean, she's 39, so she could say yes or no. But usually, if it's a younger couple, the parents will have to decide yes or no for the daughter, because they have to make sure that their daughter is going to be with a good person so that their family can thrive, so that the kids can have a good future, right? So that's why they're so picky. For men, it's not as important as women, because women, they're a virgin. So once they lose their virginity, they have kids. Most of the time, if anything happens in the marriage, they'll be the ones ending up with the kids, basically. And men usually, when they do separate from the family, they just leave with nothing. So they don't have any kids attached to them. They're just like, okay, I'll go find another wife. That's how men are. So that's why they're so picky. And yeah, so once we met, we spoke to each other. We didn't talk to each other. The old folks spoke with each other. Went back to Phnom Penh. She went to doing what she did, and I just shrugged it off like, oh well, she's probably gonna say no, because who knows, who wants to marry me, But a week later, my cousin called me and told me, she said yes, and I was like, no way. Why would she want to marry somebody like me, And my cousin was like, yeah, she said yes, and I was like, oh God, it took a while to sink in, and I was like, damn, I'm probably gonna get married, And at the time, I didn't speak much Khmer, because I'm, English teacher. I teach English. I didn't spend much time around Khmer folks. Didn't really understand the custom, the culture, or anything. And I wasn't able to understand most of the things. The only thing I knew was that I was going to get married. And so they were like, yeah, so the dowry for the marriage, they're asking for $10,000, And $10,000 is it's not pretty too high up there, It's average. The reason why it's average, and the reason why they ask for that amount is because my wife is still a virgin, and she has a lot to offer. She's a good woman. Other times, depending on what type of family the girl comes from, like around here in the villages, if she comes from like a really, really poor family, like they don't have anything to offer, usually the family will ask for like $1,000 or $2,000 just to cover the wedding expenses, Yeah, that's how it is. So, but my wife, she's a vet. She has her own business and everything, so she asked for a little more. But it was fine. It was like, it's okay. That'll be taken care of. And so another thing that they do is they'll go to the fortune teller, right? They'll go to the fortune teller and check your birth date, check with like your name and all that to see if you guys are a good match or not. And I don't know, somehow the fortune teller, they'll look at your birth date, and they're able to look at your number, like your life number. It's either good or bad. Some people aren't a good match for each other. Like I think something about like 6 years apart, If the couple is 6 years apart, they're by age, or 6 or 7 years, I'm not sure, but either one of those numbers is really bad. They cannot get married. If they do get married, the marriage will not work out. Yeah, and so for me and my wife, our numbers are both high. Like, I don't know, everything that we do, they call it like Hong Sui. Hong Sui, I think, is related to like Feng Shui, something. It's related to like nature, And for some reason, like people with high numbers, good numbers, whenever they do something in life, they always succeed. And some people who have low numbers, bad luck numbers, they do things in life and they just never succeed. Like no matter how hard they try, they just can't get ahead in life. And it kind of makes sense to me because, like how some people, they say work hard and you'll get what you want, you'll be able to attain everything in life. There's people who work their asses off every single day I see around here, but they just cannot get ahead. They just cannot like progress for some reason. They're anytime they like move forward like 2 or 3 steps, there's always some kind of setback. Like they'll get sick or something, or just bad things just keep happening, And yeah, I kind of believe it, So for us, our numbers are both good, which is a good thing. And it means that, whatever we do in life, both of us will succeed. And so that's a plus. Yeah. And my wife was like, she asked the fortune teller, like, is it okay for us to get married a year later? We were going to postpone the wedding for a year. So that time we met was 2018. And if we were to postpone it, we would get married in 2020. But then the fortune teller said, no, you cannot get married in 2020. You have to get married right away, which is 2019. And so she told me, like, we can't wait any longer. And I was like, man, I haven't prepared, I'm not ready yet. I'm still, used to living alone and being, doing things on my own. And she was like, no, we have to get married. And I was like, okay, we'll get married then. So we got engaged in like November 2018. Then we got married in March of 2019. So 2019, March, I took my vacation from work. And they were like, yeah, go get married, just turn off your messages and everything, just focus on the marriage. So before getting married, I remember some tips that my dad gave me that really stuck to me, and it just, you have to think about, like, when you have kids, when you have boys, what do you want from them? How do you expect them to act? How you want them to treat women and stuff like that. The message that my dad gave to me was this. He said, keep in mind that you've never known her your whole life. You've never given her any water. You've never offered her any food, Think about how her parents took care of her ever since she was born, since she was a little baby, how much care her mother provided for her, how she took care of her and made sure that she, was always well fed and wasn't ever thirsty. And me coming into her life, I wasn't the one who cared for her and took care of her up until that time where she was 39, And you have to think about how much love and support that was given to her for her to still be a virgin at that age. And that stuck to me, because you can think about, like, if you really cared about something, how much care you would take. It would hurt you to see somebody else hurt something that you care for that much. And so I was like, yeah. And he was telling me, like, you have to control your anger. You'll have to lose, arguments sometimes because of, our tendency as men is that we always want to win. And of course we can win because we're stronger than women. So it's our duty to follow whatever the woman is demanding or whatever her plan is for the family. Because women, they do really think about the family more than men. In the Khmer culture, the women, they hold the money because they make better financial decisions than men. And it's true, because I'm a man and I know I always want to buy something, like some type of toy or something, just something that, just being a man. And so, yeah, that stuck to me because I looked at, her and I was like, man, she's a virgin and she's at that age. She's taken good care of herself and she was raised well and proper by a Cambodian parents, And so, it made me think about the women that I dated in the States, Like, I'm not saying that women in the States are bad. I'm just saying that it's a different experience. It's a different view. It's a different perspective when you think about, like, Western women, Like, dating scene, right? Either you like each other or you don't. Or if you do like each other, you'll be with each other for a few months or whatever, maybe a year or two, and then you'll break it off and then you'll look for somebody else. So it's easy to date and, change your mind later on. But for Khmer culture, it's a little bit more difficult because, like I said, the process of getting married, the process of the engagement and everything, it's a lot more gruesome to deal with. Hold on. Hello? No, cái line là thọt video. pa lai thot video ne mami te ma pong kan. Okay, so my wife is trying to find me. She doesn't know where I'm at. I'm in the school. I'm here because I didn't want to wake them up, but they're awake now. It's okay. Okay, so for what do you call that? So for the process, right? It takes 2.5 days to get married, and each step of the wedding, it means something. There's a deep meaning to every single part of the wedding. It's like you give thanks to the parents, you know, the women, the bride, and then you give thanks to groom, and then you give thanks to her parents, and then you give thanks to my parents, you know. And the whole process, you know, you have to wake up every day at like 4 in the morning to get dressed and go through everything. It's grueling. It's exhausting, right? Because you're always changing different uniforms, you know, different types of clothing, different colors, you know, and each step means something, and it takes a long time, and you're always in like a bowing or a praying position, you know, you're laying down and you can't move. So your legs get sore, you get numb, everything. I was like, oh my God, this is taking so long, you know? And the reason why it takes so long and why it's so grueling is because you have to understand that marriage is something that you have to work on. Marriage is something that it takes effort, right? It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of understanding for you to be together before you finally come together and be one and be husband and wife, you know? And going through that process is what made me realize that. Because, you know, like I said, the dating scene in Western countries, it's so easy to break up with people, right? It's so easy to get married. You can just go and make a marriage certificate without having to go through a marriage ceremony, right? It's so easy. And then divorce is also easy, you know? And divorce, if you have kids, it's gonna have a negative effect on the kids, you know? It's gonna be so bad, you know, for the kids, you know, for their future. But for a marriage to last, for a marriage to work, you have to put in all the work. And when the parents are not divorced and they're still together for a long time, it's like a bond. It's like the foundation of a family, and it helps with the kids to be more successful. So, yeah, that's my message about marriage. You know, it's the traditional Khmer wedding is grueling, exhausting, but it's deeply meaningful. Deeply meaningful. You know, and I'm glad that I got married the traditional Khmer way. Now I understand why my parents always wanted me to get married to a Khmer woman. All right, guys, kids are awake and they are calling me, so I got to go, and I'll see you guys next time.